Resign from the case, otherwise you will not see the end of the week. This is the chilling threat that Bouwer van Niekerk received in Afrikaans from a lady the Sunday before he was fatally gunned down in his offices in Saxonwold, Johannesburg. Now today I'm talking everything Bouwer van Niekerk. There are memberships available if you would like to support the plant fund behind me from as little as 14 Rand a month. And also, if you like what I do, consider giving me a like and subscribing. Now, Bouwer van Niekerk needs no introduction, but I will give him one anyway. He is a famous insolvency attorney and he came to prominence with the Guptas. He was one of the people who held the Guptas accountable by, filing as many as 54 high court applications against them. And this is one of the reasons why they fled the country, because people like Bouwer cut off their money, their illegally earned money, from things such as state capture. And he was especially involved in the Optimum mine and, recovering money from that. Now, Bouwer van Niekerk received the threat on the Sunday, and we know that he took a meeting with new clients on the 4th of September. That was the Friday. He had a 10 a.m. meeting with them, and what we know from Bouwer's day is that he had a very close relationship with his young son. He dropped his young son at school before going to the office, and he met with these people at around 10:20 in his boardroom. To get into Bouwer's offices, there is a security gate that one needs to pass through, as well as a guard. And we know that these people presented perhaps a driver's license. There were 4 men in total, 2 that remained in the car and 2 that went in to meet Bouwer. Now, I don't want any victim blaming here. We know that Bouwer was receiving threats. His partner on the case, Kurt Knoop, also received threats and resigned. But Bouwer is someone who's been described as a bulldog, incorruptible, someone with, when they get a bone, they hold on to it. These are the things that, people have expressed about Bouwer, and it actually helps us get a sense of the man. And something tells me that this man wasn't afraid of threats. I guess he thought that he was safe in his own offices, that no one would be so brazen as to shoot him dead in his own boardroom, which is what they did, because after a little bit of small talk, these men allegedly pulled a gun and they each shot Bouwer in the head and he died instantaneously, and then they fled. Now, at the time of the recording, these men have not yet been arrested, and we know that they are wanted. But what if I told you there are at least 2,000 suspects for Bouwer's death, and that his death was based on misinformation? That someone's misinformation about what Bouwer's role was in the business, in the insolvency of an alleged Ponzi scheme, NTC trading, possibly cost Bouwer his life. Now, we're going to be talking about NTC trading, which is the alleged Ponzi scheme that Bouwer was involved in. Now, it is registered as NTC Global Trade, which has 2 other companies, NTC Arbitrawallet, as well as Foxy Trade. These are the Foxy Trade is registered in the US. Now, this company was founded by someone known as Thabo Letopa. He's going to be a main character in this, so remember his name, as well as his business partner, Marius Venter. Now, basically, NTC Trade, based on what they would sell to investors, is sort of an ingenious thing, if you think about it. And if this bot works the way it's supposed to work, it's actually an ingenious way of making money. Because what they would do is that Thabo had told everyone that he had IP on this bot. Now, this bot would be involved in cryptocurrency, and what it would do is it would scan all the different cryptocurrency exchanges in the world, and it would see what the price of, for example, Bitcoin was going for, and it would find the exchanges that were selling Bitcoin for a lower price, and it would buy it and then sell it to the exchanges that were selling Bitcoin for a higher price. And in that exchange, you earn a profit. Now, people could invest their own money and earn a profit, of which 50% Thabo was entitled to. The great thing about this is you could do everything through an app. There was an app that you downloaded and you paid the money not through the app. So there was no banking information shared through the app, but you paid from your bank account into someone else, into NTCP's bank account, and you could watch your money go up and up and up. And like I say with all scam things on my channel, If it sounds too good to be true and your profits are too unreal, then it probably is, because we know that money was going in to NTC's bank account, approximately around 476 million. And we know that 200 of that million, about 230 of that million, was used to pay back investors. But there is no evidence that I know of, based on all the reports I've read from investigative journalists, there is no evidence that this money was being used to actually trade in Bitcoin. It seems as though it just remained in the bank account. Now, if this is true, this would probably fit the allegations that it is a Ponzi scheme. But to get deeper into this, we need to go back to 2023. So we know that from May 2023 to November 2023, Thabo received about 486 million rand in investment money. And then early November, he went to the bank. He had to go in person because he requested to withdraw 14 million rand. FNB found that suspicious and requested that he come in person to do the withdrawal in case it was a sort of a ransom situation. And he did. He arrived in person. For some reason, the fingerprint failed, but he presented his ID and was authenticated. And the reason that he wanted to withdraw 14 million rand was to buy some prized game. This sounds a little bit familiar if you've been following Pala Pala, but he wanted to buy 14 million rands worth of game, golden impala, buffaloes, etc. for a game lodge. Now, someone gave an anonymous tip to the South African Reserve Bank straight after this. And we don't know who it is, but I suspect it would probably be FNB. And what happened is that the South African Reserve Bank immediately alerted the NPA, and the NPA then immediately filed a preservation order against the company, NTC Trading, worrying that they were operating as an alleged Ponzi scheme. Now, what the preservation order means is essentially a way of freezing the funds. So funds were frozen immediately. There was no way of getting the money out. And we know that this made investors particularly angry, because before then they were, for example, putting 20,000 rand in, withdrawing it a few weeks later at 28,000 rand, and some people were even grouping together with other family members. Like I said, there are 2,000 people with motive for murder here, and we're going to get to why that is a motive for murder based on something that Thabo Letsoba allegedly told his investors. Now, just after the NPA filed the preservation order, FNB stops the bank account, and one person who represented a group of investors got really angry at this, and they formed their own little group that represented all the disgruntled investors, and they filed their own litigation requesting liquidation of the company just to get their initial money back. Now, we know at this time, Thabo Letsoba approaches Bouwer van Niekerk and wants to enlist his services. Now, Bouwer van Niekerk was a very intelligent man. He knew that to get rid of the preservation order, you have to go into business rescue. So he advised Thabo to put the company into business rescue. That way the company could open a bank account, they could pay their creditors and their bills, and most importantly, it shields the company from further litigation. Now, we know that the NPA initially failed to have NTC declared as a Ponzi scheme, for the High Court ruled that the money coming in was not being used to pay old investors, because that is a classic definition of a Ponzi scheme, that you steal from Paul to pay Simon, right? In this case, the money was, anyone could simply withdraw money if they wished, right? And for this reason, the NPA, on a technicality, lost their application to have NTC declared a Ponzi scheme. By March 2024, the company NTC Global has had access to a new bank account, but FNB tells them, listen here, we don't want anything to do with this. We still think something sus is going on, so take your money elsewhere. And what they did is that NTC had to change banks, which they did. And this is when issues between Thabo Letsoba and Bouwer van Niekerk emerge. Now, in order to get rid of the preservation order, Bouwer put the company in business rescue. And business rescue is a whole process. It is a whole legal process. You can't just go in business rescue and out of business rescue. There are certain conditions that have to be met. It is a lengthy process. Now, there seems to have been some sort of fallout during this time where there were accusations being held. I believe Thabo Letsoba allegedly told Bouwer and Knoop at the time that they were just keeping the company in business rescue in order to take home their 4 million rand a month, which they were allegedly making from the company being in business holder. And that is when Thabo releases his newsletter to 2,000 investors, which provides all the motive for Bouwer's killing. Now, we know that during this time, NPA files a second application to have to take the money away from NTC and put in a state's criminal asset account before further investigation can be occurred. And Bouwer actually helps Thabo litigate this. But then the relationship breaks down because in his newsletter, it was allegedly 11 pages. Thabo says to his investors that he's presented an idea to Bouwer on how I can get you your money and how I can get you paid. But there's only two people who are standing in the way of you getting your money. And that is Bouwer and Knoop. Kurt Knoop, who was Bouwer's business partner at the time. And they are only in NTC to earn their fees. And this was a bone of contention. And in one of his court filings, Thabo also refers to it as a shifting of allegiances. He says that Bouwer van Niekerk is not on his team anymore. And the investors essentially believe this, right? Because, Thabo has also been telling them that, that money that is in your app, well, it just keeps going up and up and up, right? Your funds, your physical funds are frozen. But the money that you have in your app that you initially invested on, that you are still making profit, well, guess what? That's at a couple of billion rand now. So these people were not under the assumption that they were just owed their initial fees. They were under the assumption that they were owed potentially billions of rands. And only two people were standing in the way of that. And that was Bouwer and Knoop. Now, can you see how dangerous this situation has become because of perhaps misinformation that Thabo Letsoba has spread to 2,000 very rich and very angry people? We also know that a group of creditors approached Thabo Letsoba and said that, listen here, open an account at Luno. It is a very well-known South African cryptocurrency exchange. Transfer 1 billion rand of the money that is that you have, of the 1 billion that is potentially in the profit share. Transfer 300 million rand of that money to that account so we can cover the initial investments. And we know through court filings and through other sources that Thabo has alleged to have refused to do this, which in my mind is a little bit fishy, because if you want to pay all your creditors, right, then that should be the easy way to do it. Now, we also know that perhaps one of the websites that he has been using to trade under, Pinex, has a false URL that came out in the Leeds podcast, and that the journalist there suspects that this is all in fact is just a computer program that perhaps adds just totals like invisible money. So as a person who is running a Ponzi scheme would issue fake bank statements and invoices saying you have this much owed to you, this is just way of doing it digitally, and that app that you have is perhaps sharing false information about how much money is allegedly being made. And one of the reasons that many people suspect that is because of the money that was put into that account, that 487 million that Thabo Letsoba raised between May and November 2023. Well, the only money that has gone out of that account, that 262 million or whatever, was to pay investors. The rest of the money has been no proof. There is no proof that the rest of the money has been actively invested in crypto exchanges. And if all of this is true, then this in fact may be an alleged Ponzi scheme. And people who think that they are owed millions or billions of rands perhaps have nothing left in the bank. We don't know where that money is. So this gets back to the motive. We have 2,000 very angry people who have been told that Bouwer and Knoop are the only two people standing in the way of them getting their money. And could this be a motive for murder? Most definitely. Money is definitely a motive for murder, in my opinion. And we know that Thabo Lettoba says that he is also in danger and that he is fearing for his life, and he has gone into hiding. But I will be following this case. Let me know if there are any other cases you would like me to follow, and please give me a like and a follow, and also visit me on TikTok. I go under the handle Carri Bloom on TikTok, and please consider following me on there as well.